New groups. Light is trying to spread. New groups. It's branching, Exile. It's branching, Exile. It's put out new mycelium. New roots. The blight is trying to spread.
I need more mana. When I'm ready, and not before.
Take a chance.
When I'm ready, and not before.
This is Bev, and welcome to the Path of Currency. You've seen the explosions, so you want to know how the build works, how to get to where I am. Well, the first thing you're going to need is an explode chest. Additionally, if it's on a sacrificial garb that has the +1 skill gems prefix, that will be a bonus. You don't need this if you go for the bow route, but I decided to go for daggers. So I have 2 of these daggers, which both give +2 to all physical skill gems, and then they have some spell damage and some extra damage on it. Most of that is meaningless. The most important thing is the +2 levels for the base damage of your Blade Vortex, and as well as the explode implicit. This cost me around 50 divine, and the other one cost me around 30 because it's not as good. But you should be able to pick these up. It really depends. These are very rare, so either you get the bow or you go with these. I went with these because the bow is too expensive for me. For my helmet, I have a gull with the Blade Vortex Duration enchant and maximum power charges. You don't need the maximum power charges, but it is a very big bonus to your damage. I am using the Crystallized Omniscience Amulet. I technically don't need this, but it's really nice for capping res, and it gives extra damage. As for my gloves, I just created these myself. I bought a pair of Dex Fractured gloves, and I used essences until I got triple tier 1 suffix. And then I did suffixes cannot be changed, and I veiled chaos until I got the physical damage converted to fire. And then I just crafted that again on the implicits with the Eldritch currency. For my boots, I was using these in my old build. These aren't the best boots for my build, but they work pretty well. They give immunity to poison. So the way I made this was I got a suppressed spell damage fractured, and then I used essences until I got tier 1 attribute, and then I used a Veiled Chaos to get the movement speed on the prefixes, and then I crafted life. As for my rings, I'm using 2 Herald of Ash buff effect rings. The buff effect is very important. We'll go into that later, but the buff effect is like a more damage multiplier. So this ring has buff effect and mana reservation. You don't need the mana reservation. There was just no better option at the time when I bought this. These rings are very rare and hard to come by, so you kind of just take what you get. I would really suggest getting the buff effect though. That's the most important part. Now this ring has buff effect and fire damage, which is best in slot for this build, and it also has curse enemies with elemental weakness on hit. If you don't get this in the ring, you're going to need some way to curse enemies, so I very much recommend getting this on the ring. As for my flasks, I'm using a Progenesis and Aureus End. I don't think you need the Aureus End. I think the build works fine without it. I just like memes and explosions, so I'm using it. Additionally, I'm just using a Quartz Flask for elemental res, a Quicksilver Flask for freeze and chill immunity, and a Silver Flask for movement speed. Finally, I'm using the Skull Belt. The main purpose of this belt is to not die. As you can see my life pool, I have 2200 life right now, and that is halved when Petrified Blood goes into effect, so I can't regen above 1100 health. Headhunter will help with that. It'll give me a higher base health pool, and it will give me energy shield. It will give me regen and elemental resistances, physical damage reduction. It'll just give me flat damage reduction too with cycling resistances. So I mainly wear this belt to not die. It's a huge defensive bonus, and it also gives about 120 Omniscience, which is always nice. I have tried using Mage Blood on this build, but it just does not work. I die too much. I can't get my defenses right. I suck at making builds. I only make builds that can meme around and clear maps fast, and that's about it. So that is why I'm using Headhunter instead. It's for the tank stats and the offensive stats. If you're wondering if you can run this build without Headhunter, I would say it's possible, but you'll probably die a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean like 6 portal every map. There's just not enough HP pooled for this build. Alright, now to go over my gems. So the biggest thing I'm doing different from almost everyone else that I've seen is that I'm running increased duration support. This support gem linked to Blade Vortex I think is mandatory. As long as you have enough damage, there is no reason not to run this. Unless you're just trying to clown around on POB.ninja, this support gem is a huge quality of life increase. As you can see right now, my Blade Vortex duration is 6 seconds, and that is pretty short. You'll be running around in maps with this 6-second duration, and then your Blade Vortex will fall off, and you won't realize it, and you'll just die because you're not killing anything. So with the increased duration, it goes from 6 seconds up to 9 seconds, which is a pretty big increase. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is in map. It's a lot easier to sustain 10 stacks with the increased duration support. And I'm also running increased duration on my helmet, and I have some on the passive gem. So that's the biggest thing for my body armor. Everything else is just what you would expect from a Blade Vortex build. I'm running concentrated effect. That might be a little weird because you're thinking, why do I have so much AoE if you're going to run conc effect? And that is because Blade Vortex still has a lot of AoE with conc effect, and I don't need it to have that much AoE. The clear is in the explode. I have my Herald of Ash linked to Empower and Enhance support, and also to Awakened Increased Area of Effect support just for memes. I have it linked to Empower because every level increases the buff effect. So this is increased damage, and Empower is a more damage multiplier. For my boots, I just have an Immortal Call, cast when damage taken setup, with increased duration as well. For my helmet, I have Petrified Blood and Wave of Conviction. Wave of Conviction is to apply exposure. In my weapon, I have Enhance, Phase Run, and Increased Duration. This is like for looting the map, when I'm running around and not killing anything. Phase Run lasts around 4 seconds, and it lasts 4 seconds, so I have almost 100% uptime on this, which is pretty nice. In my other weapon, I have Whirling Blades and faster attacks. And this is when I get Soul Eater or Headhunter buffs. Whirling Blades is actually really fast, so I use that to dash on the map while I'm clearing the map. It's pretty slow without the Headhunter stacks though. And finally, I have a Portal Gem because I hate clicking portals. I just press the hotkey, it's way easier. Alright, moving on to the tree. I want to put a disclaimer here. My tree had a lot more damage and a lot more... Well, it was a lot more well-rounded before I switched to complete meme. And now all I have is area of effect. So I have 3 voices right now. And in all the voices, I have Assert Dominance, Towering Threat for the most part. I have a few Vast Powers for the extra AoE. You have 2 Vast Powers and the rest are Assert Dominance, Towering Threat. So all of my medium clusters are like that, except this one because I ran out of points. For my non-unique jewels, they're all corrupted to have 5% increased area effect. And then they have something that will help my explode damage. So this one has fire damage, area damage, and fizz damage. All 3 of those stats make the explode do more damage. They're basically all like that in some way. Fire, area, fizz. And they are all corrupted to have 5% area effect. I'm running Militant Faith Timeless Jewel. That is for Inner Conviction, which gives us more spell damage per power charge. And then I'm running the Forbidden Power for the extra power charge. This gives us 1 power charge, it gives us damage per power charge, and it gives us area of effect per power charge. This Forbidden Jewel is pretty insane. I don't know why, but it's pretty cheap too. It was like 2 divines for both of them. I'm running the Rational Doctrine. I got this tech from Tuna actually. I don't use Consecrated Ground, but I do create Profane Ground, which is really nice because I'm not crit capped. And then I found one with 2% area of effect, so I'm using that. Down here, I'm using an Unnatural Instinct because it gives a lot of good stats down here. So it gives notably like 36% area of effect. It gives some life regen. It gives some increased fizz damage. And it gives a skill effect duration. So this is just a really great spot for an Unnatural Instinct. And finally, the main way I scale damage in this build is the Calamitous Vision, which gives us Lone Messenger. It gives us only 1 Herald, but the buff effects from that Herald are magnified by a lot. To show how impactful this is, my average damage on Blade Vortex is 22,000 right now, and I can refund this. And now it is down to 18,000. So Herald of Ash is pretty huge for this build. The downside is that we can't run any auras. But who needs auras anyway? I run maps with like 96% reduced effective auras, so I don't like auras. Finally, why did I go Elementalist? Most people who run this build go Occultist, but I chose to go Elementalist because I'm going fire and not cold. Occultist is really good if you go cold damage, but since I'm fire BV, there's not much there for me. I'm giving up 1 curse, but I don't even have a way to apply a 2nd curse. And instead from Elementalist, I get a lot of damage and a lot of quality of life. So I get better exposure from Master of Discord. Heart of Destruction gives me more area of effect. Shaper of Storms gives me always shock, and I've tested this on Beyond bosses, and I still get 50%. Finally, Bastion of Elements gives me a nice defensive layer, and it also has a QOL of not taking reflective damage, which is really nice, so I can mostly ignore every map mod. I am giving up the Profane Bloom, because I'm not a cultist, but that's okay. I've tested the clear, and I really don't need Profane Bloom anyway. I've tested this with Gloomshine and it doesn't really make that much of a difference. So I don't really think I'm losing anything by not going Occultist, especially because I'm using the Forbidden Jewel to get the power charge. Alright, and that is it for the build showcase. This is not really a build guide, it's more of a build showcase. I'm just showing what I have and everything. You can try to replicate it, but I'm not sure how available these rings are anymore. And these weapons are annoying to craft, but they are deterministic enough to craft them yourself. They're just really annoying. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I will try to answer anything that comes up. And thanks for watching the video. Peace.